everybody, I am here with my 5K Q&A. I asked you guys in my last video and on Twitter if you had any questions for me so that I could do a 5K Q&A. This is really just a chance for me to celebrate all the awesome friends I've made through this channel. I really appreciate everyone who's watched, liked, subscribed, commented. You've made this such a fun place for me, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you. So I thought you could get to know me a little bit better. I am going to attempt to answer a lot of questions, so we're gonna go ahead and get into it. The first question is, what have been your favorite books you've read this year? The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, The Final Empire, which is a part of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, which I really need to finish that series. A World Without You by Beth Revis, and The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Those are probably my top favorites for the year that I read. A lot of these aren't new releases. Some of them are. And of course, Harry Potter, because I'm reading Harry Potter for the first time this year, and I have like 4 chapters left in the final book, and I just don't know what to do with myself. If you could live in any fictional world, which would you choose? That's such a hard question. I think I would be terrified to live in a lot of the worlds that I read about. Although I am reading Chronicles of Narnia right now, and I'm at a part where Mr. Tumnus is telling Lucy how before winter there were waterfalls of wine. Sign me up. How do you choose which books to do in-depth reviews on? So I'm assuming that this question means specifically like separate video reviews. I've only done like one separate in-depth book review video, I think, all year. So I'm planning on changing that in 2017. I'm not really making bookish resolutions, but I am gonna try to do more video reviews. But anyway, this is tricky for me because I think I prefer to do blog form in-depth reviews for individual books. But if I do take a lot of notes on the book that I'm reading about and I really love it, then I will do an in-depth review. I don't honestly waste a lot of time talking about books that I don't like. Unless they're sent to me by a publisher for an honest review. I mean, I'll mention why I didn't like the book in like a wrap-up or something, but I won't do like a whole separate review on it because honestly, I don't waste my time with books I don't like, and I DNF books all the time. Favorite and least favorite thing about living in North Carolina? My favorite thing is that all of my friends and family are really close by. I'm close to the mountains and the beach, which is great. Least favorite thing? Ooh, politics. Let's just leave it at that. If you could live your life as a character in a book you've read, who would it be and why? Honestly, kind of like the question about living in a fictional world, most of the books that I read tend to be really tragic or stressful in some way, so I would not want to switch places with most of the characters I read about. Even if they embark on these like crazy adventures, I don't know, I'm not a very adventurous person, which is why I like to live vicariously through books. But I will say, obviously, being at Hogwarts pre or post Voldemort would be pretty stellar. So I'd have to say Luna Lovegood. She just kind of lives her life, you know, how she wants to. She doesn't stress too much about it, and she's also brave and awesome. Favorite book to movie and or TV adaptation? This is such a hard one. I would have to say Perks of Being a Wallflower. Book is killer, movie is fantastic. Soundtrack, cast, everything, excellent. A popular book you haven't read yet. Anything by Jane Austen. I have not read anything by Jane Austen. That's right, I still haven't read Emma, so feeling the shame. I've also never read anything by Sarah J. Maas. Oh, I feel like my subscriber count is just gonna plummet from here. Which book do you wish you could have written? That is a great question. I mean, I kind of have author envy for any book that I love. I loved the writing in Sweet Bitter by Stephanie Danler. The prose was just so out of this world pretty. So I was super jealous of her writing in that book, but I could never have written that book for a lot of reasons. One of them being the main character is so edgy, and I feel like you have to have a lot of life experience to write a book like that, so. How do you choose what to read next? I have so many books on my shelves that I have not read, and honestly, the whole like looming TBR thing has never really bothered me. I mean, I am starting to feel overwhelmed by the amount of books that I have in my house, but I kind of like having so many options when I'm ready to read because I am a mood reader and I'm a seasonal reader. So I guess that's kind of how I choose what I want to read. I think about the type of book that I would want to read in that season or that month. But even if it's like, okay, spooky reads or thrillers for October, I still want to have a ton of options. So I kind of like having so many books on my shelves that I can go to since I am a mood reader. What author, dead or alive, would you love to meet, and what would you ask them? I've talked about this before, but I would love to meet C.S. Lewis, and there's not really one question that I would want to ask him. It would be more like I'd like to be a fly on the wall and just like watch him live his life and soak up all of his knowledge and his wisdom. Do you like reading biographies? If so, what are a few of your favorites? I don't read a lot of biographies. I do like to read memoirs though. A couple of my favorites are An American Childhood by Annie Dillard, The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. I do have one biography that I love a lot, and that's Max Perkins, Editor of Genius by A. Scott Berg. This biography is all about the publishing industry and the life of the editor who assembled America's favorite literary gang, Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Woolf, and more. I loved this biography as a book editor, of course, but I feel like any literary lover would love this book. How would you recommend getting involved in the book community without a YouTube channel, e.g. Buddy Reads, book chats, etc.? This is a hard one. I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is be really active on Twitter. There are a lot of bookish discussions that are constantly happening on Twitter. And I don't really use Goodreads that much, but I know a lot of people who are super active on Goodreads and they've joined several book clubs. I would say invite yourself to the party. I mean, a lot of booktubers I know would love to have you be a part of their discussions and their read-alongs. Maybe consider starting a book blog or a bookstagram. But honestly, I think it all has to do with how much you want to engage on other people's channels or blogs. The more that you comment, the more that you engage and put yourself out there, the more bookish people see your name and see what you're contributing to the conversation and get to know your reading preferences. I've had people message me before about doing buddy reads who don't have YouTube channels, and I'm much more likely to want to get to know that person if I've seen their name on my comments or around Twitter or wherever, and I've gotten to know them a little bit through comments or read-alongs. It just feels more personal that way. Most anticipated release of 2017. This is a great question. I would have to say The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Alire Sans. This book was sent to me by the publisher and it comes out in March. But I do want to read his other book first, which is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which pretty much everyone in the world and their mom has read except for me. I also really want to read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This comes out in February, I believe, and it's inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement. It just seems like a really important and gripping book for 2017 that just seems extremely relevant. And I think there's already a movie in the works for this book, so yeah, I'm really excited about that one. Have you ever read The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner? I have not, but I will look into it now. Will you ever do a bookshelf tour? I mean, it's possible. I don't know. So here's the thing. Those aren't really my favorite kind of videos to watch, so I probably won't film that kind of video. Plus, my shelves are so disorganized, like there's no order to them whatsoever. So if I randomly become inspired to organize my bookshelves, then maybe. What did you do to hit 5K in less than 6 months? I have no clue. There definitely isn't a formula. I would say engage with people as much as possible. Make friends with people in the community without thinking about the subscriber count, because honestly, this community is so amazing, and just throwing yourself into it, that's my biggest advice for anyone who wants to start a booktube channel. Just throw yourself into it. Engage and participate in readathons and tag videos. Get to know people, do buddy reads, do Twitter sprints, comment on videos. I'm really bad at this because I tend to watch a lot of videos like while I'm getting ready, and so I don't actually leave comments when I watch videos sometimes. But that's a really good way to show people that you're interested in their content, and also try to be consistent with your content. I have tried to post at least 3 to 4 videos a month. Weekly is the goal, but life is crazy and there's no formula. I don't think about what time of day I post YouTube videos or what day of the week. I probably should. I mean, I'm sure there are great tips out there as far as like what day of the week you should post and that kind of thing, but I don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff, and I don't really pay attention to analytics, so Lightning round. Okay, all of the other questions are specifically editor related. And this might be a little bit redundant because I've talked about a lot of this in my other editor talk videos, specifically the how to become an editor video, which I'll link down below. Let's do it. How do you manage your time between editing for work and reading for pleasure? And do you help edit query letters? This is a really hard balance. Sometimes when I have a crazy editing project deadline, I will feel guilty about taking a break to read for pleasure. Honestly though, if I have a really stressful editing deadline looming over me, I don't tend to read a lot anyway for fun during that time. I've talked about this a ton, but I am somebody who likes to read when I'm relaxed, not to relax. So usually that doesn't overlap too much. I really try to make sure to carve out time at the beginning of the week for reading throughout the week so that it doesn't feel like a last minute procrastination thing, but it feels like something that I'm placing a high priority on. Honestly, this channel has helped me a lot to compartmentalize like the editing reading with the reading for pleasure. I'm more motivated now to pursue reading for fun and to just kind of turn off my editor brain. I also try to read genres that are different from what I'm editing. So if I'm editing a fantasy or historical thriller book or something, then I won't tend to gravitate towards those books when I'm reading for fun. Uni degree and more in-depth about editing classes after uni. To save time, I've included all of that information down below. Do you read the entire unedited book before you start editing? This is a great question. A lot of editors work differently, but I tend to edit as I go, but that depends on the type of editing that I'm doing. If I'm doing developmental edits, I wouldn't necessarily be line editing or proofreading during the first pass of edits. If I happen to catch mechanical or typographical errors, then I may make those changes. But if I don't have my proofreader lenses on, then I'm not necessarily looking for those things. For developmental editing, I'm checking more for plot holes and, pacing between chapters and character consistency and timelines and things like that. So I definitely edit as I read, but how I edit is determined by the level of editing that's needed. How did you get started and land your first freelance editing job? So I started out as a writer and editor for a literary consultancy, mostly doing web copy, news articles, social media content, things like that. When I decided that I wanted to go into book editing, I did a lot of research on my own. I checked out a lot of books from the library and a lot of editing books, which I actually talked about in one of my editor talk videos. I emailed people through different, freelancing associations. I signed up for all of these classes, which are all listed down below. So once I joined different associations, my profile was on their website and authors could find me that way, or I could apply to different job lists that were exclusive to those associations. So that's how I got some of my first projects. But I also, the very first book I ever edited was volunteer work. A friend who was writing a book needed some help, and I took a look at the book, and that was the best learning experience for me because it took me so long because I had to look up everything and I had to get used to like a style sheet and things like that. But it was the best learning I could have ever done. And that and the homework assignments for my classes, because a lot of my homework was editing, so you learn as you go. I think a lot of it has to do with getting comfortable with the Chicago Manual of Style, and then finding those jobs, so landing those jobs really through those associations. That was the most invaluable start for me. Re your editing work, do you only edit specific genres or do you take any job that's offered to you? This is a great question too. I don't tend to assess whether or not a job is right for me or I'm right for that job by the genre. Or I guess I should say it's not just the genre. I evaluate whether or not I'm going to accept a job based on whether I'm a good fit for the author, whether I'm a good fit for that author's, schedule, budget, timeline, publishing goals. Before deciding to work with authors, I usually have them fill out an author questionnaire, which helps me assess all of these different things about their project and whether I'm a good fit for them and whether their book's a good fit for me. That said, if it's a genre I'm not comfortable with for whatever reason, which hasn't happened yet, but if I'm not comfortable with it for whatever reason, then yeah, I won't accept the job. Sometimes it's clear that the author needs an editor who's you know, an expert on the subject matter, and sometimes I'll turn a book away for that reason. But yeah, there's a lot of factors, and I really believe that the author-editor relationship is super important. I mean, sometimes we have different humor. Sometimes the author needs an editor who can really understand the target reader, and you know, you have to kind of balance all of that and take it all into account. Okay, I'm going back through these questions and I think I answered all of them. If I didn't, I'm really sorry, and I will try and respond in the comments or on Twitter. Thank you so much for asking questions. I was so nervous that no one would ask any questions, and you guys asked such great ones. So yeah, it seems like a lot of you are interested in what I do for a living, and that's really cool. I hope to continue my editor talk videos soon. I did want to reiterate though, because I'm not sure, some people I feel like think that I work for a publishing house still. I am a freelance editor, so I don't just do book editing. That's the majority of what I do, but I will occasionally work with, you know, marketing companies. I'll occasionally edit an annual report for a nonprofit. Like, it just kind of spans. It's all editing, but I did want to throw that out there to make sure that you guys have an accurate picture of what I do. So that's all I have for you. Hopefully I'll be doing these Q&As more often because they're really fun. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment if you haven't already. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.